Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hello, good evening, it's me, Patrick Christie's, identifying as the formidable Jacob Rees-Mogg on a special bumper edition of State of the Nation. Researchers at the Institute for Public Policy Research have claimed that if the illegal migration bill goes ahead, £6 billion worth of taxpayers' money will be spent on housing asylum seekers every single year. I will be discussing this with Tony Blair's former advisor and the director of the Centre of Migration. That is going to kick right off. Now, yesterday, the UK's most prolific child serial killer in modern British history, Lucy Letby, was sentenced to life in prison. But today we learn that she will spend the rest of her days in a pretty little pink room where she can buy pretty little pink dresses from their pretty little fashion boutique. The mind boggles. This is a prison, ladies and gentlemen. The pictures you are seeing on your screen right now is, believe it or not, a prison. And this woman should suffer the consequences of her actions, not go about her days like she's about to promenade or go to a prom or something like that. And do I sense a little bit of catitude? The Lionesses disappointed scores of fans, including young children, who camped out overnight just to catch a glimpse of their footballing heroes, only for the team to leave through the back door. Is this a case of going from heroes to zeros in a flash? I will have footballing royalty Harry Redknapp on to talk to me about that. And riddle me this. How is a book featuring grandpas in bondage acceptable to show a classroom of 4-year-olds? And how is the justification for showing minors these grotesque, explicit, deviant images based on the hope that they don't understand the sexualised depictions? Why are we trying to sexualise kids? Can anyone have a look into this, please? I think it's disgusting. I'll be debating this later on with the founder of the controversial Drag Queen Story Hour. State of the Nation starts now. What a show we have on the cards tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I will also be joined by a particularly animated panel this evening. Barrister, former MP Jerry Hayes, who's always in fine form, and author and broadcaster, it's the wonderful Amy Nicole Turner, who's got a double-barrel surname since the last time I spoke to her. As always, I want to hear from you, the most important part of the programme. Email me, mailmog@gbnews.com. Get in touch, get yourself on the telly. But right now, it's time for the news of the day with Rhiannon.
Patrick, thank you. Good evening. Your top stories from the GB newsroom. A former Met police officer has been jailed for 16 years for raping a 16-year-old girl and a female police officer. Adam Provan raped a colleague 6 times and terrorised her over a 3-year period. He also raped a teenager twice in 2010. Met Police Assistant Commissioner Louisa Rolfe says she's glad the victims came forward.
I'm shocked and appalled at Adam Provan's offending behaviour, as I'm sure the public are and my colleagues across the Met. I'm so grateful for the courage and tenacity of his victims, and they should be commended for their courage, but I recognise the trauma of this case and particularly, their tenacity in pursuing it through trials.
Judges will be given new powers to force convicted prisoners to hear their sentencing. GB News can reveal the government is introducing new measures to stop criminals like Lucy Letby from refusing to go to court. Yesterday, the serial baby killer didn't have to listen to impact statements from her victims' parents. The plans will be unveiled in the King's speech in November. There are warnings the UK's migrant crisis is likely to be significantly worse by the next general election. Think tank, the Institute for Public Policy Research, says any incoming government faces a perma-backlog of thousands of new asylum seekers needing long-term accommodation and support. Researchers warn the annual housing costs for the backlog could soar to over £5 billion after 5 years. And officials say all 8 people have now been rescued from the stranded cable car hanging above a ravine in Pakistan. Earlier, some of the group were pulled to safety by helicopter before poor light forced the rest to be rescued using a zip line. The children and their teacher were travelling to school in the gondola this morning when a cable snapped, leaving them suspended 900 feet in the air. And the chair of the Northern Ireland Policing Board says an independent review has been commissioned following recent data breaches. The details of serving officers and PSNI staff were published online by mistake earlier this month. A number of other data breaches have since come to light, including the loss of a police officer's laptop and notebook. The board's chair, Deirdre Toner, says steps are being taken to help rebuild trust. This is GB News across the UK, on TV, in your car, on digital radio and on your smart speaker by simply saying, play GB News.
£6 billion a year. That's how much it's going to cost us to look after people on the asylum seeker backlog. That's the new figure that's been revealed today. These are people considered illegal immigrants under the Illegal Migration Act. Now, the fatal flaw in the Illegal Migration Act is that it relies on us being able to deport people back to their own country or send them to Rwanda for processing. And despite a democratically elected government passing a democratic act of parliament in a country where the overwhelming majority of people want us to deport illegal immigrants, they still can't do it. £6 billion a year. That's money that could solve homelessness, really. Instead, we are spending it adding to the housing crisis by having to find places for people who've just arrived in this country. £6 billion a year could go to our NHS. Instead, we're being swamped at local GP surgeries with newcomers. £6 billion a year, on top of the other billions that we're sending out in foreign aid, on top of the £57 million that we are due to send to India next year, despite them currently planning to land on the moon very shortly. On top of the 500 million quid that we've given to the French, on top of weapons to Ukraine, etc., etc. When are British people going to be the priority in all of this? We are being taxed to the hilt, bumped into higher tax brackets left, right and centre to pay for policies that many of us don't agree with in the shape of net zero, or to pay off policies that we didn't agree with, like lockdowns. Are we really too afraid of the backlash from Europhiles who don't like Britain anyway, or foreign countries that aren't Britain anyway, to get out of the ECHR and start deporting people more easily? The price that the government would pay for that would be some backlash. The price that we'd pay for not doing it is arguably the total destruction of Britain due to a non-stop migrant crisis. And I ask you, which one is the price worth paying? We are going to have to start deporting people, otherwise it is a minimum of £6 billion a year to house illegal immigrants, and goodness knows what are the costs on top of that as well. The greatest cost of all, obviously, being the complete and utter loss of British culture and values, which, in my view, is priceless. We have various charities who want open borders, actively taking part in the trade of human beings to Britain and then actively helping them get lawyers to game our current legal system. They know that if they clog up the asylum system too much, eventually we will just give up and offer an amnesty and have open borders, which is what they want. We have politicians who obviously want to help win the next general election. It'd be weird if they didn't, to be fair, by undermining the current government by trying to block everything. They know that eventually the public will get so angry that they elect another party, even if that party is quite probably going to be even weaker on immigration. We can't process asylum claims, not just because of the number of them, but because we're not really allowed to, apparently, even ask fake asylum seekers who have already lied to authorities probing questions that may upset them. It does not matter what act the government passes. If we can't deport people, then we can't stop the illegal migrant crisis. And it's British taxpayers who suffer. I think that it is perfectly reasonable for the British public, British citizens, British taxpayers to start shouting this question rather loudly. When are Brits going to be prioritised in their own country? But of course, I want to know your thoughts on all of this. Don't forget to let me know what you think. mailmog@gbnews.com. Don't be shy, get the emails coming in, get yourself on the telly. But joining me to discuss this now is the former Labour advisor to Tony Blair, it's Scarlett Maguire, and the director for the Centre for Migration, Stephen Wolfe. Both of you, thank you very, very much. It is always ladies first. Scarlett, I will start with you. The uncomfortable truth is that unless we can deport people, the Illegal Migration Act does not matter, does it?
Well, what we need is a proper asylum system so that we can process people and we can deport illegal migrants and take in refugees who can then work and pay taxes. What we have at the moment is a complete clogging up, so it takes years and years for people to be processed. That's the real problem, and it's costing us £6 million a day at the moment, and that's what we should be spending money on, not barges, not Rwanda. We should be dealing with that, and we should also, obviously, be trying to stop the illegal boats. But actually, what we need to do is we need to get the system working properly.
OK, Stephen, I'll throw it over to you. And a lot of the time when I do hear that kind of stuff, I tend to fear that that comes from people who, when they say want to sort out the asylum system, might mean let everyone in.
Well, I'm afraid that we already have a proper asylum system. There is a system that complies with the UN Refugee Convention that allows people to make a claim, and we have decisions based on a grant of protection, which gives them either an asylum under the UN Convention, the ECHR, or discretionary. And since the year 2000, we've had 1.2 million decisions initially on that. So we have a proper asylum system. Where we have a system that fails, and I agree with your fellow speaker, is that the ability to assess quickly those who are making asylum. But where I disagree and where I feel that the argument of those of the Labour Party, whenever they come out with these arguments that we need a proper system, is the question of deportation or removals in the language of the Home Office. We had 15,000 people last year, 17,000 the year before, 16,500 in 2019, who were all rejected after appeals. We've not deported or removed any of them. And the Labour Party would never be able to do the same because we have no decisions that link us to returns policies with the biggest countries that bring them: Iran, Iraq, Somalia, China, India, Eritrea. Albania is different, we have got that now, and nor do we have a system that's able to take them out. And until Labour come up with a solution where they can do that, which they never will.
All right, OK, Scarlett, what is the solution? You've said things there about we need a proper asylum system. You've said that you want to stop the boats, but actually, is that just empty words?
No, of course it's not empty words. I mean, one of the things that we have to understand is that you talk as though Britain is the only place that has masses of people coming to our shores,
We're a very small place.
Masses of people escaping. I mean, the small boats people, which actually are a minority of people who come here as asylum seekers, the small boats people have already been through. They're escaping the countries. There is.
Oh no, I'm sorry, you nearly said something else there, didn't you? Did you not nearly say they've already been through several safe countries?
No. we know they've been through several safe countries because they're coming over from France, right? That is a fact. But what I'm saying is it is incredibly difficult, right? You cannot send people back to places like Iran, to places like Eritrea. I mean, there is a global problem. I mean, we've heard that the Saudis, because they don't know how to deal with people, are actually killing Eritreans. That's their way of dealing people trying to cross the border. The thing is what we have to do is we have to have a system that works. I mean, when all what this government says, so Rwanda hasn't. It was never going...
But this is the thing, though. I'm sorry to interrupt on this, but we are being told by a load of people that we don't have a system that works by the very same people who are doing their best to undermine every single option that is ever put forward. They don't want us to leave the ECHR. They don't want Rwanda to work. They don't want us to be putting people in detention centres or offering any kind of deterrent. They don't want us to be pushing the boats back. And Stephen, I'm just going to throw it over to you on this.
Patrick, I wish you'd actually ask me what I think instead of telling me.
Well, I have asked you. I've asked you twice. You've told me. So there we go. Stephen, do you not think that we are just being undermined by a group of people who don't really want this to work?
There's no doubt that when you look at the whole politics of this, there is an argument being used by the Labour Party that see this as a strong opportunity to say that government is weak. It uses the usual language. It's failing. The system isn't working. The ministers aren't good at their jobs. And the reason that's part of general politics. Undermine the politician, undermine the party, and you can say it. But what they never do is actually ever put in place a policy that they themselves will work. The only thing I've heard from the Labour Party is that we will do a deal with France to have safe ports of use to be able to bring migrants in from France, which means that we set up bases in France. That isn't going to stop anything. The people smugglers will still work the system, and if people fail, they'll still put them on boats. That isn't a solution.
OK, Scarlett, I'll give the final word to you on this. Do you think that we live in a country that prioritises illegal immigrants over British citizens?
Absolutely not. I mean, I think we live in a country that prioritises British citizens. I think we have to understand that a lot of these people are refugees escaping war, right? But what I don't understand, Patrick, is your solution. I mean, that's what is. I'm giving a solution. I'm saying that what we have to do is we have to get the asylum system working so that we process things and send people back. What you're just saying is it doesn't work and everybody's against it.
I offer loads of solutions regularly. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I have a debate between two people is that it's nice to hear other people offer solutions. But, I mean, I would turn the boats back and I would get us out of the ECHR. So that's my solution. And I think that would work pretty bloody quickly, actually. But both of you, thank you very, very much. That is, of course, the former Labour advisor to Tony Blair, Scarlett Maguire, and the Director of the Centre for Migration, Stephen Wolfe. A rip-roaring way to start the discussions there. Mailmog at gbnews.com. Get your views coming in. Coming up next, I will be speaking to a former prisoner about how life in jail will go for the UK's most prolific child serial killer in modern British history. Lucy Letby, what can she expect behind bars, especially from other inmates? Plus, the footballing legend Harry Redknapp will be weighing in on the Lionesses supposedly avoiding their fans who camped out for 24 hours to see their heroes.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Monday to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. I am still not Jacob Rees-Mogg, but this is still State of the Nation. You've been getting in touch with your thoughts. I'm going to read them out very quickly. Christine says we need to patrol our borders. If they're coming through safe countries, we need to send them back there. Fine. Ian says instead of a luxury cell, this is on Letby now, which actually I'm going to talk about in a second, the only place Letby should have gone is out of the courtroom and onto the gallows steps. It always rears its head, doesn't it? The death penalty debate when you end up with crimes as heinous as Lucy Letby's. But yesterday, Lucy Letby received a whole life sentence for the murder of 7 babies, the attempted murder of another 6. And well, I say she received, she didn't really, did she? Because she was handed the term in the court cell as she refused to attend the sentencing hearing, where she would have also heard those victim impact statements. Yesterday, I launched a petition to end this and make killers face real justice. Now, you can sign that petition, gbnews.com/justice. There is a QR code on your screens right now. It takes less than a minute. Hold your phone over it, scan it. We can actually make some real change. Give the government a kick up the backside and make sure that people have to attend their sentencing and those victims' impact statements. So far, around 25,000 of you have signed it. Thank you very much. Keep up the good work. But today, we got an insight into what life might look like at HMP Low Newton. Pictures of the cells emerged and the details that women at Low Newton Prison have the option of shopping in the prison shop, apparently. It's called Rags to Riches, yeah? And the Independent Monitoring Board said it's popular with the women. Well, so's murder, apparently. The prison has organised animal visits, has brought in goats and sheeps to the established... Sheeps. It's a shame they didn't bring in the grammar police as well, isn't it? It's the establishment, along with having a residential rabbit and birds, which you can say plural. And this is supposed to be the place where Letby suffers the consequences of her crimes, not, of course, a petting zoo. But I wanted to know, what is life really like behind bars for somebody who has committed the crimes as heinous as Lucy Letby really is? I am, as yet, not ever been to prison, although I think it's probably a matter of time. Joining me to discuss this is Ads Khan. Now, Ads is a motivational speaker as well. I've interviewed him several times. Thank you very much. Great to see you, Ads. And for what it's worth as well, a former prisoner who was sentenced to life in jail for a crime he says he was not responsible for. Ads, thank you very much for coming on. Great to have you on the show. Look, I've got to ask, what is life going to be like for Lucy Letby? You know, convicted serial child murderer behind bars, inmates out to get her. What's going to happen?
Well, it's... hi, Patrick. Nice to see you too, mate. Thank you very much. Well, it's going to be as bad as you can imagine. The male prisons are rough, but the female prisons are worse. I think she's going to be hearing the echoes of her crime from left, right and centre, 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You know, it's a very unfortunate set of circumstances. And my thoughts go out to the victims and obviously the victims' families. But rest assured, there's not going to be a positive outcome or a solution in her life ever again.
Can they protect her 24/7?
Well, yeah. I mean, you can protect somebody if you're going to sort of like lock them up behind a door 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that's the only access to life she's going to have. Then who needs protection in them kind of situations? But as she goes into prison, you know, it'll be a very sobering experience and frightening one as well, by all the inmates, by your next door neighbours, by the landing upstairs, downstairs, to a left-hand side, to any sort of... Every time she takes a step, she's going to hear them words of "you child killer."
No, indeed. And I mean, many people would say, rightly so. What do you make of some of the conditions that we've seen? Just some of the pictures there about there being some kind of fashion boutique in the prison, the walls supposedly being painted kind of girly pink, and they have, you know, days where they bring in animals. I can see you throwing your hands in the air there, Ads. Your views?
I tell you what, if I had anything else in my hand, I'd throw that as well. In all honesty, I think it just goes to highlight and show the incompetence of this bloody government that we've actually currently got. It's crackers. And I think that the government are responsible for further victims. Instead of stuff like this, what happened to good old rehabilitation? What happened to putting money and your thoughts and everything into the rehabilitation aspect of things? And therefore, there'll be a lot less crimes and a lot less victims, more importantly. And this focus, you know, it doesn't happen, right? Because it's not sexy on the political arena, right? But the fact remains there needs to be a cross-section commitment to say that, look, cross-party commitment to say, look, although no matter what happens in the elections, right, we need to implement these laws in prisons and give them the right rehabilitation so there's not another victim.
I think, yeah, exactly. I take your point. I think for the wider prison population, I'm not sure it necessarily applies with Lucy Letby, but I get where you're coming from. Az, can I ask you something? Look, it's a little bit personal, but at some point in your life, years ago, right, you were sentenced, OK? When you were given your sentence by a judge, I don't know if there were victim impact statements or anything like that. Lucy Letby's caused a lot of controversy, amongst other people recently, for not coming up from the cell in the courtroom to hear the judge hand down her sentence and also hear the victim impact statements. Did you do that? What was that like? What do you think that prisoners should be made to do that?
Oh, 100%. In my circumstances, no, there was no victim statement. Victim family statement. But if there was, I do the right thing. I listen to them, and because I think it's important for the parents and the family members to give their own the story really behind what's happened to them and the ripple effect that this has caused. It didn't happen to me personally, but I think not just murder. I genuinely believe any crime, the victim's family or the victim should have the right to actually voice their concerns. And I'm with you. I would think we should push the envelope and demand a law that compels people convicted of crimes to face the victims and get into the ears, the haunting echoes of their deeds. And I stand with you in this pursuit of justice. In fact, I'll go further. I also believe that if they don't want to come up, I think they should be gagged. I believe they should be strapped, right? And I believe they should strapped and restrained, right? And them statements being read to them. And if that doesn't work, then I tell you what, shove them in a cell and you can actually play these statements 24/7 through a speaker so it never loses the sight of actually what they have done, and especially in this set of circumstances.
Az, it's powerful stuff. Az, thank you very, very much. Az, before I go to my panel...
Don't let him
go.
Because I want to know what he was convicted of. I want to know what his crime was. I want to know why he was sentenced to life imprisonment.
OK, Az, we weren't planning this. I've got a panel with me, one of whom has just suddenly got very, very animated.
Well, I have got animated.
He has now asked you that question, Az, so...
What were you convicted of, matey?
Oh, I don't know. We can have this conversation. I was convicted, as you can read on my website, I was convicted of murder under the controversial law of joint enterprise, which basically at that point meant that I was present when a murder was committed by somebody else. Now, the judge and the prosecution said that you two have the mitigation factor of no intent. Even up to this day, I still don't know what the unfortunate victim looked like. And since then, the law of joint enterprise has also been challenged in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled that this law had taken a wrongful turn over 30 years ago.
So you're denying your guilt still, are you?
No.
Did you appeal?
No.
All right, Jerry, I think it's a little bit...
No, it's not. It's very important because you've actually invited someone on your programme.
I've invited him on. He's been very clear about his position on all of this.
No, he hasn't.
He has. He's just answered your question directly there. I think that's a pretty direct answer.
He was convicted of murder, which he's now denying he committed.
Well, go on, Az, then come back to that then. So you obviously are denying, yeah?
No, thank you very much. No. I was convicted under the law of joint enterprise, but I did not physically kill the unfortunate victim, or strike a fatal blow. So it's all right throwing everything you have at me, but you've got to have a look at, and this is what I'm saying. Look, if joint enterprise has taken a wrongful turn, I'm not saying release absolutely everybody, but each case needs to be dealt on their individual merits.
OK, look, that's all right. Thank you very much. And it was an unscripted kind of interaction there, but, you know, fair enough. Az Khan there, motivational speaker, former prisoner, obviously, as well, who was sentenced to life in jail. Joining me, as I'm sure you're aware now, is my panel barrister, former MP, Jerry Hayes, author and broadcaster, Amy Nicol. Jerry, right, I'll start with you, because you're pumped up, and I don't want you to have some kind of aneurysm, right?
He's a murderer.
Well, he's not a murderer.
He is a murderer because he was convicted of murder.
Joint enterprise.
Yeah. No, he is a murderer. He was convicted of murder.
He's been through the criminal justice system.
Who has been through the criminal justice system.
Due process.
Also, with respect, Jerry, because I also don't want
to prosecute these cases.
You know, fine. I
defend these cases.
I also don't want to get into a ridiculous situation where I am now on national television defending a bloke who I've actually never met in person for a crime that he was found guilty of.
You shouldn't have had him on in the first place.
No, excuse me, because I'm not defending him. I actually want to talk about the issue at hand. The reason why I had him on was to talk about Lucy Letby and the kind of treatment that she's going to get in prison.
Yes.
Do you think that people should be made to come to the dock to hear their sentences and hear the victim impact statements? Jerry, before we finally get round to hear what
they shouldn't be forced because it just won't work. You've got to have dignity in the sentencing, and there was great dignity in the sentencing yesterday. One of the things that he said, the convicted murderer, was that put it into the cells. Nothing wrong with that. But you can't force it because there are people who are actually looking after these prisoners who will be under severe risk of harm.
Exactly, and that is an aspect of it where we could maybe look to protect them a little bit more and see if we can do something so they don't end up on the wrong side of the law for going over reasonable force. Amy, your views?
I think that there was something in what he said about maybe playing it through CCTV, so they have to listen to the statements. I don't know how practical it could be to literally force them in front of the court. It could turn the court into a bit more of a circus, which would be the last thing that you'd want for those poor victims and their families. But I know, as a mother, when I imagine receiving the news that those parents have received, the feeling of wanting to see her
and that's, I think, what should almost be the
I want to grab her and say why, really.
Because the other side of quotes unquote forcing people into the dock is that some victims and victims' relatives wouldn't want that. And obviously, you'd have to say then that
it made me uncomfortable to hear him say gag and drag. That aspect.
Well, it's simplistic, isn't it?
That's not helpful to me. I think we're a better country than that.
You think we're a better country than that? I think there's other ways. I think there's other ways of coaxing them. So coaxes to say, let's say Lucy Letby, whole life tariff. There's absolutely no point saying to her, we'll add a few years onto your sentence. Impossible. So you could say, we'll never give you the right to a phone call or to use the tuck shop in prison, or access to a television. We'll take away all your privileges.
Or the right to appeal. The right to appeal. You see,
here we go. Now we're in, Jerry. Now we're in.
Which is quite interesting.
Right, go on, quickly.
I mean, one of the things that when you first start a court case, you have what's called a PTPH, where everyone is, what we say, arraigned, you plead guilty or not guilty, and you are warned, the defendant is warned, if you plead not guilty, you have a trial, and you don't appear, you will be
lose your
tried
right
in your
to appeal.
absence. Yeah, no, you'll be tried in your absence. So there's something here. You could say, look, if you don't attend, you could lose your right to appeal.
Right, I like this. So, some solutions. Both of you, fiery stuff. I will be coming back to you a little bit later on. But coming up, do you think the Lionesses intentionally avoided fans at the airport this morning? Do you care? Have they gone from heroes to zeros? Some of those kids waited out for absolutely hours. Plus, what on earth is going on in your child's preschool? Teachers in Hull were apparently flabbergasted when parents objected to 4-year-olds being read Grandpa's Pride, which features old men in bondage.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, I'm Alex Deakin and this is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. Tomorrow, most places will have a fine day. Some places seeing quite a bit of sunshine, others staying fairly cloudy. The warmest conditions in the south, close to this area of high pressure. We've had a bit of a north-south split today. The low further north has been bringing more clouds and a fair few showers. Still some of those around this evening, particularly across central and southern Scotland, but clearing away, so most of us will have a dry night. There'll be some lengthy clear spells, perhaps clouding over somewhat across South Wales as we head through the early hours. It'll be another warm night in the south, but a bit colder than last night further north. Temperatures certainly across northern Scotland well down into single figures. But it should be a bright start here, maybe the odd shower over the Northern Isles. We'll see more showers through the day across western Scotland and small cloud across the western half of Wales with some light rain and drizzle possible, particularly so through the morning. But a good part of southern England, eastern England and northern England seeing some decent spells of sunshine. A warmer day across the northeast of England too. Warmest in the south, 25-26 degrees, where it's cloudy. Temperatures more likely to be in the high teens. Now, Thursday's a bit of a mishmash. Rain clearing away from Scotland and Northern Ireland, brightening up here, but there is the potential for some heavy showers across the south. Just a risk at this stage. You've got plans in the south on Thursday. Keep up to date with the forecast. Still quite warm and humid here. Again, elsewhere temperatures high teens or low 20s. Bye for now.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Right. Young, eager fans ready to welcome home the Lionesses this morning at Heathrow Airport were let down after the squad decided to leave through a private exit. Many supporters stayed overnight from 10:30 p.m. yesterday evening in the vain hopes of greeting their heroes upon their arrival this morning at 6:30 a.m. Some fans even paid £80 for parking fines. So, was this out of order? Did the Lionesses do anything wrong? Have they given their young fans a slap in the face? Legendary former English manager and player Harry Redknapp joins me now. Harry, you absolute living, breathing hero. Your players would have never done... You wouldn't have let your players take the private exit out, would you? You'd have pressed the flesh with the young fans?
Well, I don't think the players would have known. I mean, they arrived back at the airport. They're just told to get off the plane. The coach is waiting. They don't say, well, we have to go out this way. No one tells them there's any fans outside. They really, you know, honestly, as footballers, you're like sheep. You all follow each other. You could get on the wrong plane. You could go to the wrong country. You're following the people in front of you. It's honestly, we're herded like sheep, really. And the players wouldn't have known any different. They wouldn't have known. I'm sure if they'd have known there were some fans there who had been there all night, they would have gone out and said hello and signed some autographs and had some pictures. But they wouldn't have been aware of that, I'm sure.
Do you think it's bad management, not by the actual England football manager, I mean by the PR teams and whoever else they have with them? Because it was a little bit of an own goal, I think, Harry. You know, someone could have said to them, look, I know you're knackered, I know you've had hours on a flight, etc., but you've got to go and do a little bit of a meet and greet. They must have known that some people would be waiting for him.
Well, if they'd have been told, I'm sure they would have done it. You know, they've been fantastic, and I think they've done everything they can with the media and everybody else. You know, when they were away, they was always having pictures, always on TV with the fans. I'm sure they would have done it. They really couldn't have been told to give them the right advice. But yeah, a bit of an own goal. They could have easily been told, look, there's a few punters outside. They've been here all night. They're fantastic people. They love you. Just come and walk through the airport, have a few pictures, and it would have saved any problem.
Harry, did you ever have any players who hated the fans?
Hated them?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. They were scared of them. When I first went back to West Ham, the players had got relegated the year before. They wouldn't even go on the pitch for a warm-up before the game because they was getting some grief from the fans. But and I used to when I was at Chapel Heath, manager of West Ham many years, I used to let all the old boys come in the morning, watch training, stand in the car park so they could watch the training sessions. You know, they were West Ham, they lived for the club. And if anybody didn't sign their autographs back in them days, there probably weren't cameras around. I used to really give them some grief. You know, the game belongs to the fans. They are the people that pay the money. This is their game. Give them your time. It don't cost nothing.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? And I think that's why people were quite surprised. Look, I can, for what it's worth, completely see the other side of this. There was no scheduled fans meet and greet. People have, off their own bat, decided voluntarily to spend a night at an airport in the hope of seeing the Lionesses. I get what you mean, that realistically these players will have got off a plane and done what they're told, OK?
Yeah, they would have,
yeah. And let me tell you something as well. If I'd have been on a plane for... you know, or a couple of planes for the best part of 24 hours, that duty-free bar would have taken so much of a hit that I wouldn't have been able to talk to any of the fans anyway, right? So I can completely start that. I think maybe it's bad management as opposed to anything else. Look, I don't want to drag you down a road that you're not comfortable talking about. I don't expect you to necessarily have a massively strong view on this, but there is another big footballing story in town. I just wonder what you think of the Mason Greenwood situation with him leaving Manchester United. It has divided people, this. What do you think?
No, I don't see how he could play for Man United again. I really can't. I think he'd have got so much abuse from the fans. it would have been horrendous. I just don't think it would have been a good situation. I think he needs to go abroad. He made a big mistake, and he's got to pay his dues, basically. And I think he needs to go abroad if he can, resurrect his career, change his attitude. It's not the first misdemeanor that he's committed. You know, he got picked for the England team and made a massive own goal on his first trip away with England. I think he needs to go abroad now, get back to playing football. He's a fantastic footballer, but he needs to change his ways. You know, we can't. And he's made a mistake. He's got to pay the consequences. I think he's finished in England.
You think he's finished in England completely forever?
I do. Yeah, I can't see him coming back here. No.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you on that one. Look, Harry, thank you very, very much. It's always a pleasure to chat.
Pleasure.
It's great to have you on the show. Look after yourself, Harry Redknapp there, former English manager and player. Right, OK, coming up, what's on your kids' reading list this summer? Good one, this, right? So 4-year-olds are being read Grandpa's Pride by their school teachers, and if, you know, it might be worth you having a little look in your kids' school bags, because this features grown men in bondage gear. These kids are 4 years old. I'm going to be talking to an LGBT children's author next, Seb Samuel, a drag queen as well, off of Drag Queen Storytime. Look, are people who want kids to look at grandparents wearing bondage actual sexual deviance? In a tick.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel. Here's a question for you. Would you take your 4-year-old child out of nursery school if they were being read a book that featured images of men in bondage, amongst other bits and bobs. That's the decision that some parents in Hull faced when their child had a book called Grandad's Pride, which was written and illustrated by Harry Woodgate, and it was read to them in preschool. So the book contains images of partially naked men wearing what appeared to be leather straps, spiked dog collars, and others who'd undergone apparently top surgery, which is the removal or reconstruction of breast tissue, and people who transition genders. So when the parents complained that the pictures were inappropriate, staff at Genesis Preschool said that the children would just think that the images portray people dressing up. So is this really the kind of thing that kids should be reading in school? And is this the best way to teach them about all sorts of different things, the pride community, etc.? Or is it actually the kind of thing that will help to flourish and nurture a new generation? Joining me now is LGBT children's author and drag artist Sab Samuel. Thank you very, very much for joining me. Hello, all right. Look, there is obviously a lot of hoo-ha about this particular book. Now, can I ask, like, why do you think four-year-olds should be looking at this?
So, I mean, you've made two things going on here. You've asked me if a four-year-old should be reading this book and whether or not you think four-year-olds should be looking at bondage gear. I don't know who's told you that what you've seen, the image, you can bring it up if you like, is bondage gear, but it's not. I don't think leather or that kind of stuff that we're talking about here right now on the book is actually considered traditional.
Just carry on. Can we remove the strap of that?
I think it's called. I mean, I don't know if you have a little bit of LGBTQ history here, but the leather bikers of post-World War I, which were...
I am going to just interject, Sab, because I think we might be guilty of splitting hairs here, mate, because that, I think, for many people is regarded as bondage gear for other people.
You know, the Harley-Davidson bikers of the post-World War I era are what we would deemed at that time.
So should a four-year-old be looking... So
the concept of what we deemed masculine back then got slightly overturned by the LGBTQ community. We actually adopted the concept of the leather biker on the Harley Davidson as a protest to what we deemed.
How many bikers on Harley Davidsons did wear leather knickers, though? That's the thing.
Does a gay man always have to be this kind of glittery person? No, they don't, and that's what this is learning to. You know,
I don't think it's necessarily an issue of. Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily an issue of children not being taught at all in any way, shape or form about same-sex relationships or that love can take all many different forms. I think it is whether or not a four-year-old should be looking at a grandpa in knickers with some spiky little collars on, kissing another man and some mastectomy scars as well.
I mean, would you have a problem with the same thing with the leather bikers on the back of bikes of Harley Davidsons? Because this is what it's referring to.
Oh.
There's an LGBTQ contextual history that maybe you're not wanting to listen to what I'm saying here. You've got me up to talk about it.
I am listening to what you're saying. No, Amy, both
bikers.
Hasn't read the book. I'm here to save you. I am here to save you because they say.
Can we just actually hang on a minute?
No,
the format's this show.
It's too important.
Sam, I've got to be honest. I've got to be honest with you, right? I really do think we are splitting hairs here. It is a question of whether or not children of the age of 4 should really be taught about anything sexualised. So you can even forget whether it's LGBTQ. You can even forget.
Do you find it sexy? Is that what you're saying? Are you finding the content of the kids' book sexy?
But it's overtly sexualised, isn't it, Sab? It's overtly sexualised. You've got men kissing each other. You've got that going on.
Men kissing each other is overtly sexual. Is that what you're saying?
Right, OK, I actually can't hear you because my panel are annoying the living hell out of me by shouting over you. So, Sab, unfortunately...
Are you saying that two men kissing each other is overtly sexual?
Well, it is, it is overtly sexual.
Yeah. So whenever me and my partner are walking through the park and I see a specific type of bird that, without context, reminds me of my partner and I kiss him because I see a bird that reminds me of my partner. Don't ask. Are you saying that I'm being overtly sexual in the park?
To be honest with you, Sab, I've got absolutely no idea what it is you're talking about. So, and we are a bit pressed for time. So I'm going to leave it there. All right, Sab. No, I've had enough about birds in parks. Does anyone else get that?
Excuse me.
Didn't get that.
I have to.
Right, now, my incredibly annoying panel are going to talk at you for a minute. Amy Nicole, go on.
Thank you.
Right.
So you've
Present
given
it.
Sab an impossible task there, because that book's content is not about sex and it's not about bondage.
Yes.
It is a lovely story about a man who lost his husband.
Yeah.
It is a story about love and relationships. It has you could do a Where's Wally search. It would feel like Where's Wally.
And it has an image in it, though,
An
doesn't
image,
it?
but they say don't judge a book by its cover, but you're showing the wrong cover. This is the cover.
Right, but the book that the parents pulled the kids out of the school, out of it, had that image in it.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it did.
It's the American
because
version.
The parents, excuse me, well, that was the book that was on offer in that school. Because
That's the picture. That's the picture.
That is why the parents pulled it out of that
That's the
school.
picture there. This tiny background image. It's like, where's Wally? Trying to find it. There's not the
But
word...
it is in there, isn't it?
There is not the word bondage.
Yet
there
again,
is not the word
we are
sex.
splitting hairs.
There is nothing inappropriate in that book.
Why should parents of 4-year-old kids be finding that? Well, they are. It's in the book.
It's not in the book.
Has everyone gone mental tonight?
Sab hasn't read it.
Has everyone gone absolutely bonkers? You're saying it's not in the book. You've pointed it out in the book. It's there in the book. We can all see it.
There is no reference to sex. There is no reference to
There is a
bondage.
massive rainbow and trans flag
It is
on
the
the
most
front
homophobic trope possible
of a book.
to define homosexuality in terms of sex. That is truly...
Do 4-year-olds need to have this in their lives?
That might be their grandpa. That might be them one day. They deserve to see all types of families represented, and this is a beautiful story. And I suggest anyone critiquing it reads the book by Harry Woodgate. Because it's a gorgeous book. In fact, I'm going to give it to you, and you can read it when you get home.
OK, thank you very, very much. I will give it to a 4-year-old.
No, the book you presented is not that book.
Thank you,
John. That is the essence. The book you presented is something I want to see. Whoa.
No one wants to see.
I wouldn't want to see any 4-year-old see the book that you presented. But that's in America. This is the British book. That's the difference. Our young children are not seeing the book.
Our young children are looking at pictures, right?
Go on, you find one.
On top of everything else. Well, it's there. You say, go on, find one. You've all gone absolutely bonkers. It's right there. Right? Why on earth would a 4-year-old need to know about things like it's OK to say gay, trans rights now?
What's wrong with saying gay?
For 4 years old, does a 4-year-old need to be reading content like this? That's my question.
Oh, yeah. The thing is, but the way you present it, it's not your fault. It's your producers who gave you all this rubbish. But the fact is, you've got a book which is from America.
Right, Jerry, there's a couple of things at play here. The picture that we have shown on this show is in this book.
Where is
it? It
Show it to us.
And you're presenting it as a cover.
Show it to us.
You've just held it up. I am now literally out of time because you two have been annoying as hell.
I know.
It's beautiful.
Thank you very much for your time, everybody. There we go. Dan Wootton is up next. Dan, what's on?
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, I'm Alex Deakin, and this is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. Tomorrow, most places will have a fine day. Some places seeing quite a bit of sunshine, others staying fairly cloudy. The warmest conditions in the south, close to this area of high pressure. We've had a bit of a north-south split today. The low further north has been bringing more clouds and a fair few showers. Still some of those around this evening, particularly across central and southern Scotland, but clearing away, so most of us will have a dry night. There'll be some lengthy clear spells, perhaps clouding over somewhat across South Wales as we head through the early hours. It'll be another warm night in the south, but a bit colder than last night further north. Temperatures, certainly across northern Scotland, well down into single figures. But it should be a bright start here, maybe the odd shower over the Northern Isles. We'll see more showers through the day across western Scotland and small cloud across the western half of Wales, with some light rain and drizzle possible, particularly so through the morning. But a good part of southern England, eastern England and northern England seeing some decent spells of sunshine. A warmer day across the northeast of England too. Warmest in the south, 25, 26 degrees. Where it's cloudy, temperatures more likely to be in the high teens. Now, Thursday's a bit of a mishmash. Rain clearing away from Scotland and Northern Ireland, brightening up here, but there is the potential for some heavy showers across the south. Just a risk at this stage. Got plans in the south on Thursday. Keep up to date with the forecast. Still quite warm and humid here. Again, elsewhere temperatures high.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want